Um, Good evening and welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustments public hearing for March 22nd, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a couple announcements to make before we begin the meeting. Just so everyone is aware that all testimony this evening is recorded. And because of that, we ask that when you speak, if you can say your name first, and if you are an applicant, if you could also state your mailing address for the record, and then go ahead with your testimony once you've been recognized by the chair. The members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, one member at large, and one member appointed by the Planning Commission. And let's see, in response to COVID-19 and pursuant to Minnesota Statute Chapter 12 relating to the emergency management, Governor Walz has declared a state of emergency. In response to the state of emergency, in accordance with the Minnesota Statute, Chapter 13D.021, all Board of Adjustment members, except for the chairperson and applicants, are participating by telephone or other electronic means. In-person attendance and comments from the public will not be allowed to conform with the MDH and the CDC guidelines to minimize gatherings. This meeting is broadcast live, and members of the public were asked to submit any comments by 3 o'clock today. I'll give a brief overview of how our proceedings work this evening. I will read the variance request, and I would then ask that the applicant be ready to join into the conversation. The applicant and the representative will be asked to state their name and their address, and then Environmental Services staff will give us a brief overview of the request and tell us about any correspondence that they would have received regarding this request. Then we will go to the applicant, and the applicant can provide any input, corrections, concerns that they might have. Once the applicant and or their representative has finished with their testimony, the board will discuss the request and ask any questions of staff or the applicant that they might have. Upon completion of the board's questions, then we'll see if there's anyone in the audience and anyone else chiming in. And according to my records here, we don't have anyone for this meeting this evening. And upon completion of that, I will ask for the board to make a motion to close the public hearing. And after the public hearing is closed, there'll be no further input from the audience, the applicant, or Environmental Services unless recognized by the chair or if one of the board members wants some type of clarification. So our first item this evening is to consider a request from Gary and Courtney Barash, Bolas, Minnesota, from section 6.7.5D of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to expand to a greater than 10 animal unit feedlot and reactivate and use an existing structure for feedlot purposes that is less than 700 feet from a residential dwelling. The said ordinance requires a setback of 700 feet to a residential dwelling from an animal feedlot that is registered for 10 animal units or more. The affected property is 40 acres of the southeast quarter of Section 32, Tract 127 North, Range 29 West of Brockway Township. And the property address is 44201 115th Avenue, Bolas, Minnesota. And are the Borish family with us this evening? Gary or Colleen? Okay, well, staff, do we know if they are online with us?
Bonnie, I do not see them yet. I will give them a call.
All right. Do we want to,
Oh, wait a minute. Nope, sorry.
Yeah.
should we,
I
would
don't
you like
see
us
him.
to go ahead on to item number 2 and come back to this?
We sure
Or
can.
Okay. We will skip ahead to item number 2. Are the Hartongs with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then we will go ahead with number 2. Number 2 is to consider a request from, oh, excuse me. Number 2 is the Doherty. Is John Doherty with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that is the one we will go to then. To consider a request from John Doherty, St. Joseph, Minnesota, from section 6.7.5D of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to leave as existing residential dwelling that is less than 700 feet from a feedlot registered for 10 animal units or more. The said ordinance requires a setback of 700 feet to a residential dwelling from an animal feedlot that is registered for 10 animal units or more, and the affected property is 21.15 acres and the part of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter and of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 23, Track 125 North, Range 29 West of St. Wendell Township, and the property address is 34477 County Road 4, St. Joseph's, Minnesota. And if we could have an overview from staff after we check on who was able to visit the site. Just for the record, Jake and Jason are not with us this evening, but we do have 5 members, which would be a quorum. So Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I also visited the site. So if we could have an overview from staff, please.
Sure thing, Madam Chair and members of the board. As stated, the applicant is requesting to leave as constructed a residential dwelling 514 feet from a feedlot. And the Stearns County Ordinance 439 requires a 700-foot residential dwelling setback from an animal feedlot that is registered for more than 10 animal units. And the property is 21.15 acres in Section 23 in St. Wendell Township and is all zoned A140. The applicant, if approved, would be proposing a plat of roughly 75 plus or minus acres for the residential dwelling. Road access to the property is from County Road 2 and County Road 4. The applicant is requesting the variance from his current residential dwelling to his current permitted feedlot structure. The proposed setback of 514 feet is 28.6% deviation from the 700-foot residential dwelling setback in Ordinance 439. The most recent feedlot permit issued was on June 27th of 2017 for a 50-foot by 100-foot open lot and registered the facility for 25 animal units consisting of 25 head of beef cattle after a requested variance was approved by the Board of Adjustment on June 22nd, 2017 to construct the animal feedlot structure 270 feet from a residential dwelling and 175 feet from a non-agricultural district. A site inspection was conducted by staff on February 12, 2021 and was found compliant for Minnesota Chapter 7020 feedlot rules and the Stearns County Ordinance 439. The parcel to the south was rezoned on May 2nd of 2017 from A40 to R10. All remaining surrounding parcels are zoned A40. There currently are no other locations to move the open lot to that would meet all the setbacks required by Ordinance 439, and that is why it is not listed as an alternative at this time. The alternatives listed are to grant or deny the variance requested based on the findings of facts, do not propose a separate parcel containing the residential structure from the permitted feedlot, request to register the permitted feedlot to be 9.99 animal units or less, so there is a less restrictive setback that would be met, or deactivate the permitted feedlot. St. Wendell Township, City of Sartell, St. Cloud Daily Times, Cold Spring Record, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request.
All right, thank you.
And I did not receive any correspondence to date in regards to this application request.
All right, thank you. If the applicant then could share with us any thoughts that they have about this application.
Just trying to use my property as efficiently as I can, and nothing's really changing. Everything will be as it was. So that's really all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for staff. If this parcel is separated, the house is separated from the rest, will there then be a building entitlement on the remaining property or not?
That question, I believe, there would be, Angie, I don't know. I would think that if it's an A40 and greater than 10 acres remaining, there would be a building entitlement, but I'm really, at this point, I'm not sure.
So, Madam Chair, Joe, this is Angie Berg, Environmental Services. So the parcel is 21 acres in the A40 zoning district, and so the parcel as a whole is only allowed one building entitlement because it's zoned A40. It's considered a lot of record. So to answer your question, if the property is split into two, the parcel with the feedlot would not be allowed a building entitlement unless the property were to be rezoned.
Great, thank you. All right, other questions from board members?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory. I have to admit I'm very confused by the request, and as I read the applicant's notes to their request, it seems like they're concerned about some type of road construction. I don't know if it's a roundabout or whatever they're might be concerned about, and that would maybe take over their place where they have their residence. So I'm hoping maybe the applicant can provide some more background to this request. What is their concern? Why do they want to split this property?
Did the applicant hear the question?
Yeah, I didn't know if I was supposed to speak. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yes, go right ahead.
I just want, there's a lot of roundabouts in the area, and I'd like to have myself prepared so I don't lose my feedlot in the future. It means a lot to me to be able to produce some nice beef animals and farm, and I don't want that to be disrupted. So that was the main goal.
And if that is the goal, then a question for staff. If there was a roundabout put at this particular intersection and somehow that roundabout through eminent domain would take his house, I'm assuming that wouldn't have any impact on his ability to have a feedlot or to put up another house on his own property. Please correct or confirm.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, again, this is Angie Berg. As for the future, I can't speak to or speculate. I did confirm with the county engineer, Jody Tyke, that there is no roundabout proposed in this location. And so without exactly knowing what type of roundabout they might build sometime in the future, I know that environmental services staff would not be able to answer those questions because that would be an engineering type question. Certainly would seem to me, though, looking at the parcel of 21 acres, that there would be room to still have a building site. But where and how that would look would be tricky to speculate at this time.
But I appreciate the concern about speculation. I think the applicant is looking for this variance request based on his interpretation of what might happen in the future. And so let's say a roundabout takes 5 acres or 16 acres left, you know, and so I'll do the speculation. I'm just looking for that answer. And so if there's 16 acres left, they take his house, so on and so forth. Because it's his own feedlot, there'd be no restriction to how close he could build that house to his feedlot. Is that correct?
I'll let you take that one, Joe. I think I know the answer, but
Yeah, members of the board, Madam Chair, for a person who owns the property that has the home or vice versa, a feedlot on it to build a home, there is not a setback requirement from the home to their own feedlot. You know, if they're meeting all the setbacks, potentially a home could be attached to a shed used, you know, for housing animals even. So there is really no specific setback that the ordinance has for a setback from a home to a feedlot that's all contained on the same parcel owned by the same owner. Currently in the ordinance, it applies to a residential dwelling that's not on the same parcel as the feedlot or home, so.
Okay. And I'm assuming that if this were separated, then it would allow the residence and the feedlot to be sold separately. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, members of the board, that is correct. If the feedlot request or this variance request is approved and there's 2 separate parcels, they could travel independently of each other at that point.
Okay. Other questions from board members?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, question for the applicant.
Go ahead.
So for the applicant, Mr. Doherty, what is there something prompting you to make this variance request? Is there actual things happening that made you want this variance request, or is it just to be preemptive in case something happens in the future?
Mr. Doherty, you can go ahead and respond to that.
No, not necessarily, but my land is very hilly, so it's not like I can build a new place directly, you know what I'm saying, anywhere I choose. I have, you know, areas that are highly roadable. So if I, you know, can split what I need off, that way I don't lose my feedlot if they come through a future road expansion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to be persistent on this question, but I'm still very confused for the need for this variance. So if there is road construction and so on and so forth, under what circumstances would the applicant, and this is a question for staff, under what circumstances could the applicant lose their feedlot? I mean, is there a situation or a set of circumstances that would cause that feedlot to be lost? I can't think of any, and so I'm hoping you can, again, either confirm or provide more insight.
Madam Chair, Dennis, this is Angie Berg. And so I think that I had a lot of the same questions going through the staff report review, and I guess I was having a hard time understanding the origin of the request, because my understanding is if there would be part of the property taken through right-of-way acquisition, it would affect the ability to have a feedlot unless the feedlot is in the particular area that they're looking to acquire. and that would be up on the corner. So I think what I'm trying to say, Dennis, is that we could confirm that if a roundabout came in, that it would have no impact to the proposed, would not have no need for the property to be split in order to maintain the feedlot. Maybe that's hopefully the clearest way to say it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's that's been my conclusion as I've read it and as I've looked at it. So I just wanted to have some confirmation of that. Thank you.
And I think with my experience of what they've done with eminent domain or right-of-way acquisition is that they normally don't take more land than they really need. So then to take the entire 20 acres doesn't really seem like it would be a reasonable thing that the county would do. Other comments or questions?
I don't know how to do it from there.
Dave Gamrad.
Go ahead, Dave.
Staff. It seems like there's a lot of residents right to the south. Are there residents now that are approaching that 700-foot line for this feedlot?
So to the south of this, there is. So the property to the south was rezoned to residential instead of A40. So the landscape has changed a little bit since the 2017 variance for the feedlot, and then obviously the rezoning to the south in 2017. And there is actually, to the parcel that's exactly to the south of this, there is a residential dwelling permit that was pulled and issued in December of 2020. That would be
Number 5.
not encroaching on the 700-foot setback to the current feedlot, but it would impact then at that point
I don't know how to do it.
the 700-foot setback to the rest of the parcel. So it would cover everything east of John's current parcel to the north line at that point. So.
Okay, and I have a question in regard to that residence. Is it going to change how the feedlot affects the residents, whether it's attached to the house or not?
For John's current home to the feedlot?
No, you were talking about the one to the south.
Okay.
I don't believe that would have any impact either way, would it?
For where the current feedlot is now, no. If John were to want to move the feedlot, then he would have to move it to places that would meet all the setbacks or apply for a variance request if it didn't. So.
Okay, and I believe that would be regardless whether the house is attached to the feedlot property or not.
Yeah, and so for the feedlot that John has now, he was granted the variance. It is used. It is allowed. It is established. And so, as earlier in the discussion with the questions of can a person have a home as close as possible to their feedlot on the same parcel? Yes, but when you're creating a separate parcel with the house, that's why he has to ask for this variance to be approved before he can create a separate parcel with a residential dwelling on it not meeting the 700-foot setback. So.
Okay. Any other board members with questions before we go to closing the public hearing?
Dave Gamrad, I would like a follow-up on that question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
If that's the case, if he would get this variance, he could actually sell that parcel to some other party and let them build a house closer to him?
So if the variance is approved, the home on the 1 point plus or minus acres, 1.75 plus or minus acres could be sold, could be retained. The parcel that would contain only the feedlot currently, that could be sold separate. And I think as Angie had stated that it wouldn't be allowed a building entitlement, so it would just travel with the feedlot at that point. Or he would have to apply for rezoning and then adjust the feedlot accordingly to meet the requirements of the zoning that he would be requesting if needed.
Yeah, but if it gets rezoned non-agriculture, then he could not have a feedlot there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we ready for a motion for closing the public hearing?
So moved. Dennis.
All right, thank you, Dennis. And do we have a second?
Second, Mike Hain.
All right, do we have anyone opposed to closing the public hearing from the board? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. We will move on to findings of fact. And the variance request is to leave an existing residential dwelling that is less than 700 feet from a feedlot registered for 10 animal units or more. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, having a home near a feedlot is allowed in A40 district.
Right, so we have a yes for number one. Does anyone disagree with yes for number one? Hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Did we lose Bonnie?
No, I'm here.
Okay, I just wasn't hearing anything. I just thought maybe we lost you.
Oh, no, I had read question one and I'm waiting for any responses from the board.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad,
Yes, Dave.
I'm struggling with the purpose of this. If there's a family member that's going to build a house there, or if we're just going to set aside an acre and a half for it to be sold off or whatever, so anybody can build a house there, then it's circumventing the ordinance.
Right, so you would state yours would be a no for number two?
I guess I would have to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that would like to have discussion on this item? Do we have, can we state the official control or the ordinance that we would be referring to?
Well, Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I don't know if there is specific, and I have the same difficulty as Dave indicated. I don't think there is a particular ordinance that fits this situation because there isn't really a need, in my view, for the variance. And so I think it's difficult to point out an ordinance. I don't think it fits with the ordinances. I think that's the issue.
So if we look at this maybe as just general, where the question asks about general purposes, without stating a specific ordinance. So right now we have 2 no's to number 2. Is there anyone that disagrees with no for number 2? All right, then I will mark that as a unanimous no. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane. I believe under the agricultural goal number 5, we're strengthen and retain areas of highly valued agricultural land or economically viable animal agricultural operations. I think because he does have a smaller animal operation and it is out on the outskirts of town, that it would be a viable operation.
All right, so you are saying
Yes.
that yes, it is
Yes.
compliant with the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to state that with under the agricultural goals, the agricultural use policy number 1, where it says primary land use in the agriculture areas should be agriculturally orientated. And I think by us separating this, we're separating it then into a residential lot and into a agricultural lot. So I think that's kind of going in a different direction. So I am going to say no for number 3. So we'll do a roll call on number 3 since we have 1 yes and 1 no at this time. Dennis?
No.
Jill?
No.
Dave?
No.
All right, so we have 4 no's and 1 yes for number 3. So we'll mark that as a no. Question number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory. I don't believe that the variance request is using the property in a reasonable manner. It says underneath there, we should consider the reasonable use of the property that is lost if we don't grant the variance or if we have strict enforcement of the official control. And I don't think there is any practical difficulty or any loss to the property by not granting this variance.
All right, so we have a no for number 4. Does anyone disagree with no for number 4? Okay, hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous no. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane. I believe it's solely the landowner who is creating this request to split off the parcel. So my vote is no.
All right, we have a no for number 5. Does anyone disagree with no for 5? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous no. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I think as you pointed out, if the property is split off, it could end up being a change in the essential character from a agricultural to a residential property. So
right.
No.
All right, so Dennis is saying no. We have 1 no for number 6. Does anyone disagree with no for 6? All right, hearing none, mark that as unanimous, no. On number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod, I don't think economics were discussed in this proposition.
All right, we have a yes, 1 yes for number 7. Anyone disagree with yes for 7? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. We are now ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we deny the applicant's request to leave as constructed a residential dwelling 514 feet from a feedlot.
All right, do I have a second?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I will second that.
All right, then I'll do roll call on the remainder. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So your request has been denied. If you have additional questions on what you can do from here, please contact the Environmental Services staff during business hours via phone, and they would be able to help you with any questions you might have. Thanks for joining us this evening. Then we will go back to item number 1. Do we have that applicant with us at this time?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. We already did the reading of the application.
Okay.
And now I will ask board members who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes, and I talked with Courtney, and she just basically confirmed the project location and the details, nothing that wasn't already in our packet.
Okay. Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I also visited the site. All right, so if we could go on to staff to give us an overview.
Sure thing, Madam Chair and members of the board. This applicant is requesting to reactivate a 34-foot by 54-foot total confinement barn, 320 feet from a residential dwelling. The Stearns County Ordinance 439 requires a 700-foot residential dwelling structure setback from an animal feedlot that is registered for 10 or more animal units. The property currently is 40 acres in size in Section 32 of Brockway Township and is zoned A40. The applicants purchased the property in May of 2016. The applicant is proposing a 34-foot by 54-foot barn identified as number 1 in the attached map with the packet, a 100 by 200-foot open lot labeled as number 2, and a 60-foot by 80-foot roofed concrete permanent stockpile pad identified as number 3 with the requested 28.625 animal units. The requested 28.625 animal units will consist of 25 slaughter steer, heifer, stock cow, or bulls at 1 animal unit per head, 5 feeder cattle at 0.70 animal unit per head, and 25 layer chickens over 5 pounds at 0.005 animal units per head. Road access to the property is from 115th Avenue. The site was originally registered on August 21st of 2000 for 26.8 animal units, consisting of 15 head of dairy cattle, 6 head of finishing pigs, and 4 horses. In 2005, the site was registered for 2 animal units consisting of 2 head of horses. In 2016, the owners at that time submitted feedlot registration update paperwork that stated that they had not had animals since 2012, but the maximum animals on site in the past 5 years was 2 head of horses. Feedlot staff sent a letter in 2016 to the owners stating the site would be registered for 2 head of horses and the need for restocking to at least 10 animal units to keep the legal non-conforming use grandfathered privileges. The site, since not restocked to 10 animal units by 12/31 of 2017, resulted in the loss of the legal nonconformity. According to Ordinance 439, Section 5.1.4C, feedlots not maintaining a registration of 10 or more animal units at any given time in a 5-year time period are subject to all requirements of Ordinance 439 for expansions or modifications, including setback requirements for new animal feedlots and manure storage areas, structures, or facilities. A site inspection was conducted by staff on February 12, 2021, and was found compliant with Minnesota Chapter 7020 feedlot rules and Stearns County Ordinance 439. The surrounding parcels are zoned A40. Alternatives to this request is grant or deny the variance requested based on the findings of facts, remain registered for 0.34 animal units and permit the structures that meet the setbacks of 439 when registered for less than 10 animal units. Propose in a feedlot permit application a registration of 9.99 animal units and permit the structures that meet the setbacks of 439 when registered for less than 10 animal units. Request a feedlot permit application to be greater than 10 animal units with only structures in open lot areas that meet the setbacks of Ordinance 439. Brockway Township, the Star Post, Cold Spring Record, and property owners within 500 feet have also been notified of this request. And that's all I have, Madam Chair and members of the board. And I had not to date received any electronic or written correspondence in regards to this request.
All right, thank you. All right, board or the applicant, if you have any comments that you'd like to share with us.
Sure. I guess the one thing I would kind of like to add to the mix here is we purchased the property in 2016, as was stated. The timing just seems to have been rather unfortunate with the communication, because when I looked into the feedlot status, I was not made aware that that if we had restocked that year, we could have still maintained the original registration. And so I guess I just want to clarify that the reason that we did not take action then is because my understanding was it was already too late.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, question for the applicant.
Go ahead.
Are you related at all to the Beanics, like Gary, Alan, Alvin, Paul Beanick?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay, good. I just wanted to be sure because I know they're related to some people with the same last name. The other question I had for staff is, so if the barn was deactivated in 2017, how were those other homes built closer to the barn? Were they all built since the barn was deactivated, or how did it happen that they were too close?
Madam Chair, members of the board, so those homes, per my understanding, were there when the feedlot was registered in 2000, when it was greater than the 2 head of horses. So they've been existing there.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions?
Yes, sorry. So follow up on that. So does that mean that it was so were these legal non-conforming before? So they were built before the restrictions came into place?
Yes. So if they were new proposed homes at the time that a site is registered for 10 animal units or more, those proposed homes would have to meet the ordinance setback requirements. And if they couldn't, would come in front of you as a board for a request for a variance for a setback reduction. So those homes would have been pre-existing, which would also be legal nonconformities grandfathered in. So once the site became no longer a registered 10 or more animal site and was not restocked, if currently now someone wanted to build a home within 700 feet of item number 1 on the map, they could, because the site is not a registered currently 10 or more animal unit feedlot.
Thank you.
Okay, additional questions?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question, I think for staff. The letter that is sent to an owner, the one that was sent in 2016, is that some type of a form letter, or is it very specific to that particular site? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the potential confusion. If it's a form letter that could potentially be misunderstood, or was it very direct to that site?
Madam Chair and members of the board, so that form at that time was a registration form that gets sent out, depending on the registration status of the feedlot and the level that they're registered at. Can depend on that, would be every 4 years, every 6 years, and if they're less than 10, then we don't send them standard 4 to 6 year mailings. But in this case, we did receive a form to our office, and then on January 25th of 2016, the current owner at that time was a Joy Gardner, and it was sent to that address, the 44201 115th Avenue, Bowles, Minnesota, stating that the site is currently registered for 2 animal units, as 2 animal units have been the maximum animal units on the site in the past 5 years. And then it was also noted in there, however, I did note from your current registration form we received that you have not had animals on site since 2012. To maintain grandfather privileges for the site, at least 10 animal units need to be on site at least once in a 5-year period. You have until 12-31-2017 to restock your site with at least 1 animal unit, or your feedlot facility will be deactivated. So, and that was sent by staff to the owner in 2016. So, it was not sent to the current owner.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That was exactly the question. So sent in January, they bought it in May, and potentially in the transaction, the previous owner probably could have given them the letter. But and so then a question for the applicant: did you receive any notification from the previous owner about the status of the feedlot?
When I talked to her about that specifically, she told me that because there had not been animals on site, that it was no longer a registered feedlot. So I don't know if she just, lost track of what that date was, or if she didn't read it in full or not. But I didn't see the letter, but what was communicated to me was that it was no longer registered.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Additional questions from board members? Hearing none, we'd be ready to close the public hearing.
So move, Mike Hain.
All right, we have a motion to close. Do we have a second?
Second, Dennis.
Dennis seconds. All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed, and we will move on to findings of fact. The variance request is to expand to a greater than 10 animal unit feedlot and reactivate and use an existing structure for feedlot purposes that is less than 700 feet from a residential dwelling. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod, it's an A40, and that's allowed use in an A40 zone.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with that? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I think the agricultural goals of supporting agriculture as a desirable land use under agricultural goal number 1, that this is in harmony with the general purposes and intent.
All right, so we have a yes for number 2. Is anyone opposed to yes for number 2? All right, we would have a unanimous yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would point to agricultural use policies. Number 1, primary land uses in the agricultural areas. This is A40, should be agriculturally oriented. So I think it is in harmony.
All right, we have a yes for 3. Does anyone disagree?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I'd like to also add agricultural use policy number 2 to emphasize the importance of animal agriculture to the county economy by treating it as a priority land use in this area.
All right, thank you for that addition. So then I'm assuming you are a yes?
Yes.
Jill? All right, we have 2 yeses for number 3. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 3? Hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, they are proposing to use a barn to house animals. It previously housed animals. It is a proper use. It is a reasonable manner.
So we have a yes for number 4. Anyone disagree? I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, I believe that because of the fact that they purchased it and the communication was dropped somewhere along the line about the discontinuation of the feedlot, I believe that's due to circumstances beyond his control.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Anyone disagree with yes for 5? I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, it does not change the essential character.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree? Mark that as unanimous yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod, economics were part of this discussion.
So we have a yes for number 7. Anyone disagree? Hearing none, we'll move on to receiving a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to reactivate a 34-foot by 54-foot total confinement barn, 320 feet from a residential dwelling.
All right, and do I have a second?
Dave Gamrod, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will do roll call on remaining members. Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So motion carries. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, and we'll move on to item number 3 for this evening. To consider a request from Donald Hartung and applicant Lance Hartung of Melrose, Minnesota from section 6.7.5D of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to leave an existing feedlot structures that are less than 50 feet from a proposed property line and less than 700 feet from a residential dwelling, and to construct a new total confinement barn less than 700 feet from a residential dwelling for animal feedlots that is registered for 10 animals or more. The said ordinance requires a 50-foot property line setback and a 700-foot setback from a residential dwelling from animal feedlots that are registered for 10 animal units or more. The affected property is 119.5 acres of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter and the north half of the northwest quarter, less 16 rods of the west 5 rods of the northwest quarter of section 25, track 126 north, range 33 west of Melrose Township. The property address is 39752 of 325th Avenue, Melrose, Minnesota. And our our applicants with us? Are the Hartongs
Yes,
there?
I am here.
All right, we'll be
Yes.
back to you in just a moment. Right now, we'll do roll call on who was able to visit the site. Dennis,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I also visited the site. All right, if we could have an overview from the staff member.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The request is to leave existing feedlot structures 10, 16, and 47 feet from a property line, and to have an existing feedlot structure 175 feet from a residential structure, and to construct a new feedlot structure 381 feet from a residential dwelling. Current ordinance 439 requires a 50-foot property line setback and a 700-foot residential dwelling setback from an animal feedlot that is registered for 10 or more animal units. The property is currently 119.5 acres in Section 25 of Melrose Township and is zoned A40. The surrounding parcels are zoned A40. The applicant is proposing a property line identified on the included survey with your packet. The proposed property line will be splitting the existing feedlot into two separate feedlots. Cattle shed number 1 is proposed to be 175 feet from the nearest residential dwelling and 10 feet from the property line. The calf hutches number 3 are proposed to be 16 feet from a property line, and the dairy barn number 4 is proposed to be 47 feet from the property line. A freestall barn labeled number 6 on the footprint map enclosed in your packet is proposed, and that will be 381 feet from the nearest residential dwelling. Road access to the property is from 330th Avenue. The proposed setback of 10 feet is an 80% deviation, 16 feet is 68% deviation, and 47 feet is a 6% deviation from the 50-foot property line setback in Ordinance 439. The proposed setback of 175 feet is a 75% deviation, and 381 feet is a 45.6% deviation from the 700-foot residential dwelling setback in Ordinance 439. The feedlot on the parcel was originally registered via Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, known as the MPCA feedlot permit, on September 24th, 1998, for 139 animal units. On March 26, 1999, the feedlot facility was granted a conditional use permit, known as a CUP, to construct a 90-foot by 153-foot by 10-foot outdoor liquid manure storage area and have met the conditions outlined in that CUP. The CUP was needed due to the construction taking place within 300 feet of a stream, which is known as shoreland. The feedlot facility is currently registered for 139 animal units consisting of mature milked or dry dairy cattle, dairy heifers, dairy calves, and slaughter steers heifers. The applicant has submitted a feedlot permit application and is proposing a freestall barn with milking area identified as number 6 and an increase in animal units to 364.4, consisting of mature milked or dry dairy cattle, dairy heifers, dairy calves, and slaughter steers and heifers. The applicant received the township signature on the feedlot permit application on February 18th of 2021. A site inspection was conducted by staff on February 12th of 2021, and the feedlot was compliant for water quality discharge standards. The site at the time was non-compliant for manure application records as required by Minnesota Chapter 7020. Prior to approving the request to expand in animal units and construct the proposed freestall barn with milking area number 6, a manure management plan, MMP, will need to be submitted to the Environmental Services Department, ESD, for review. The manure management plan will need to include the previous cropping year's manure application records for the feedlot. The records will be reviewed by staff to make a final determination of compliance for the keeping of manure application records, and once it is determined the requirements of Minnesota's rules, Chapter 7020, are met, staff will approve and issue the feedlot construction permit. Alternatives that exist are: 1, to grant or deny the variance request based on findings of fact. Propose a property line for feedlot structures meeting the 50-foot property line setback. Propose a property line for feedlot structures meeting the 700-foot residential dwelling setback. deactivate any needed parts of the existing permitted feedlot to meet the 50-foot property line setback or 700-foot residential dwelling setback, unregister the portion of the feedlot north of the proposed line to be a 9.99 animal unit or less feedlot, and deactivate any needed parts of the south existing feedlot to meet the 50-foot property line setback or 700-foot residential dwelling setback, and propose the new freestall barn 700 feet from the nearest residential dwelling. Melrose Township, City of Melrose, Stock River Watershed District, the Star Post, Cold Spring Record, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. Madam Chair and members of the board, to date, I have not received any correspondence in regards to this request, electronically or in written format. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, if the applicant has anything they'd like to share with us at this time?
I just want to say that the buildings that are currently there are still got feedlots. Nothing really is going to change. I'm just trying to start taking over the farm from my dad. So we're trying to plot this off. He wants to continue to keep his house. So we're just trying to find a way that we can split this parcel off, and I'm able to build this barn, because we are currently milking at 3 different sites. So we want to kind of put everything together and just keep going with that.
All right, I have a question. I have a couple questions for the applicant. So there'll be a legal separation between these 2 different parcels of property. What will be the total animal units of the 2 parcels combined? Will that be the 364, or is that the 364 just for the new parcel that's being created?
That would be just for the new parcel.
All right, and then what will be the animal units that'll be on the old parcel? Or the original parcel? Is that the 139?
Sure.
Okay, it says you're currently registered for 139. Will that still be 139, or will that be somewhat less than what it currently is?
That will be somewhat less, because the animal buildings that are currently on that permit will be going over to the new section.
Okay, and then I have a question for staff. When you add those together, we get close to, this 500 number. Is there any change on requirements for feedlots of 500 animal units or more?
Madam Chair, members of the board, so in the past, what typically happens if a feedlot is separated, in this case, this would be one of those where we take the feedlot folder. Basically, if it is approved, we would take the folder, we copy it, and then we would have to county-wise and state-wise give one of the sites a new registration number, and then both feedlots then at that point, if the variance is approved, could travel independently of each other and increase and decrease in animal units as seen fit for each site. And then at that point, whatever the site's registration or animal unit capacity is, then that is where they would have to be meeting the requirements of manure management plans, 500 or more public notice, and then 700 or more a conditional use permit would be required outside of shoreland. So it really will depend on, if this is approved, you're going to have, in sense, 2 separate feedlots having the ability to increase and decrease independently of each other.
Okay, and I believe my question more so was, let's say, for instance, it's not separated. It stays together and this building is built and the animal units are increased. What effect does that total number of animal units, if it's over 500, is there other guidelines they have to follow that they're not currently being required to follow because of the number of animal units?
Yep, Madam Chair, members of the board. So if their variance request is not approved at this time, and they were to choose to increase, as of right now, what's listed in your packet is what I have a feedlot permit application for. If the property owner slash applicant chooses to increase beyond the 360, let me go back here.
364.
Yep.
It says. Yep.
So if they are wanting to increase beyond that, they would have to basically ask for a revised permit and submit a new application. And if it is over 500 animal units, what they are asking for, they would have to do what they call a good neighbor notice. And that is running a notice in the paper for one time. And then we have to wait 20 days to reissue that permit at that time. So if this isn't approved and the applicant or owner doesn't make any changes or revisions to their permit application, we would permit it as it's requested here, laid out in front of you. And if they come back and want to ask for animal unit increase or want to operate at a higher number than what's proposed in that application, they would have to submit a new application and do a public notice for 500 or more. The MMP would also still apply. So,
but they wouldn't have to do anything like an environmental impact study or anything like that, would they?
As long as their expansion, they can show that their expansion is outside of shoreland, which in this case, the freestyle barn is all outside the 300 feet, then they would not need an EAW or a conditional use permit because all their expansion is taking place outside of shoreland.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Other questions from board members?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane. Question for the applicants. So if we're going to split the farm from the parents, are you also then planning on building another single family home, another well and a septic system as well then on this property at some point? Or are you just going to use it as a business?
There will not be another house built on the property. Possibly another well will be drilled. But other than that, everything's going to just be used as a business. It's going to be another house will not be built on that section.
All right, thank you. Additional questions?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, just following up Mike's question, I just want to understand from staff, if he wanted to, he could build a house on that property. Is that correct?
Yes, if I would assume if they're able to meet the outlines of the ordinance requirements for that zoning, and if it meets those zoning requirements and has the ability to have a building entitlement, then yes, they could.
Okay, and staff can, just for clarification, the way the property currently lies now is 119.5 acres in an A40. They could currently build another residence on that 119 without any split. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, Angie Berg. So there would be several different options under the ordinance with or without splitting the property. They could do a second home on a farm and set aside 40 acres, but they would have to basically finance it on the overall parcel. There would be an option for a manufactured home, temporary, I believe up to 15 years. And as Joe indicated, provided they have building entitlements, which I can look at within a couple of minutes, they could then, if the variance would be granted, separate it and someday build a home on the other parcel. I can confirm they have building entitlements if that's a question.
Well, I'm just kind of guessing that, you know, my thought process is that whether they separate it or not, they probably can do the same thing with whether they would build a residence or not. I'm guessing.
Right. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question for the applicant. The property line you have going right through the middle of the farmyard, and that seems like an interesting place to have put the property line. Why not just go south of the entire building site? You could still utilize the other buildings, and then you wouldn't have needed all of these variances, you know, from the property line. And for selling it in the future, I'm not sure how you could sell a piece of property with a property line going through the farmyard. So just if you could help us better understand why the placement of the property line where you put it.
Yeah, so we put it there because I want to have the few buildings and also the manure pit that is there. So I want that part of that parcel. If we go south of that, then that's not part. So we're just trying to keep, I'm trying to answer your question the best I can. So we're trying to keep the two separate, but the one where the freestyle building is going, we also needed the manure pit, and I also wanted the two other buildings to house animals in that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, additional questions? All right, I think, go ahead, Dave.
I have a comment. I think sometimes the manure spreading records and stuff, I think that the industry would be better served by taking a 2 or 3 year or 5 year grid sampling of farms and using that for manure spreading applications, because then it would be sound science and not something that's hypothetically done on a paper. It's just, I think that the country would be better served by doing it off of what the samples are of the soil and not what somebody puts on paper. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Any additional questions before we go to closing the public hearing?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, just because there's a lot on here, I wasn't sure, what is the size of the two proposed lots once the property is split?
If the applicant could respond to that.
I'm not 100% sure on the exact acreage of each. It's 119.5 total right now, and the section that we're looking at splitting off, I believe, is around 20 to 25 acres.
Madam Chair, the map says 27.8 acres.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Dennis.
We have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Dave, I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. And we will move on to findings. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located.
Madam Chair, it is a A40 zoned property, and feedlots are approved use.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree? Mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would point to agricultural goal number 4, which is to strive for and support higher farm profitability and family farm stability. This is an example of a son taking over the farm from a father, and also looking to bring the dairy cows all into one location versus 3, which will help the profitability as well. So I think it is very much in harmony.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Does anyone disagree with that?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe Dennis's argument for the agricultural goal works well for number 3, but for number 2, I believe the general purpose and intent of the official controls is to make sure that there's a good distance between homes and feedlots, especially if they're not on the same property. And right now, just the way that they're drawing that property line, it does not sound to me like this fits with the general purposes and intent of the official control, as really they're going to be right next to each other between that house, the residential house, and the feedlots.
Okay, so we have 1 yes and 1 no for number 2. We'll do roll call on that. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with a comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, as Jill pointed out, I probably had a better answer for number 3 than 2. And so again, I will point out the agricultural goal of number 4, which is farm profitability and farm stability for the reasons I mentioned previously.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Does anyone disagree with yes for 3? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I believe it is a reasonable request to combine and consolidate their dairy operation onto one parcel of land and make it more efficient to operate for the father and the son.
And I'll add to those comments, just saying when farmers are trying to pass down their operations to, their sons or daughters, sometimes economically having to split a portion of it off first and then gradually taking over the entire farm is a necessity in this economic situation today. So, I think that's a very reasonable way to look at it. So we have a yes for number 4. Is there anyone that disagrees with yes for 4? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, as the applicant pointed out, he needs access to the manure pit and some of the other sheds to work together with the dairy barn that he's building. And so I think it is unique to the property, given where those buildings are currently located.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Does anyone disagree? Go ahead, Jill.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say no, it's not unique to the property because I believe the landowner is drawing this property line and they could draw it different ways. So I believe it's not unique to the property.
Okay, we have 1 yes and 1 no for number 5. So we'll do roll call on that. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So number 5 is a yes. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, I don't believe that the locality is going to change by adding a barn. It's pretty rural in that area, and the barn is not going to change that location.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Does anyone disagree with yes for 6? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod, I don't believe economics were part of this discussion.
Okay, we have a yes for number 7. Does anyone disagree with yes for 7? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. We are now ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to have 2 existing feedlot structures, 10, 16, and 47 feet from a property line, and also their request to have an existing feedlot structure 175 feet from a residential structure, and finally to construct a new feedlot structure 381 feet from a residential dwelling.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
So move, Mike Kane.
All right, we have a second by Mike. Roll call, Jill?
No.
Dave?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Motion carries. If you have any more questions about your request, you can check with Environmental Services staff via phone during regular business hours. Thank you for coming and joining us this evening.
Okay, so it is approved then?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, number 4. Item number 4. To consider a request from Joshua and Amy Meyer of South Haven, Minnesota from section 6.2.1P of Table M of the Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance 422 and section 9.9.11 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a deck less than 20 feet from a subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area on a lot that exceeds 25% impervious lot coverage. The said ordinance requires a deck to be located 20 feet from a subsurface sewage system soil treatment area and allow a maximum lot coverage of 25%. The affected property is lots 3 and the west half of lot 4, block 1 of Schmidt's North Shore Addition, section 5, track 121 north, range 23 west of Fairhaven Township. And the property address is 5825 Bradley Road, South Haven, Minnesota. And are the Meyers with us this evening?
Yeah, this is Josh Meyer. Thank you.
All right. We'll be back to you in just a few minutes. First of all, we'll do a roll call as to who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes, and I did have a discussion with Mr. Meyer. He showed me where the patio was, where the sewage treatment area was, and explained to me how he wanted to have the footings right next to the patio blocks and that they were working on an engineered stormwater plan in the front of the building.
All right, and Mike?
Yes, and I also spoke with Josh on the same subject.
And Dave?
Yes, I was there.
And I also visited the site. All right, if staff could give us an overview.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own Lot 3 and the west half of Lot 4, Block 1 of Schmidt's North Shore Addition. The addition was platted in 1965. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2019. The total lot area of the property is 20,261 square feet, according to the survey provided by the owners. There is an existing 3,222 square foot residential dwelling with attached garage and a 450 square foot patio that was permitted and constructed in 2003. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of a septic tank that was permitted and installed in 2016 and a drain field that was permitted and installed in 2003. The entire system was certified compliant in 2020. The applicants are proposing to construct a lower level deck that is 50 feet by 12 feet, 600 square feet, of which 144 square feet will be a screened in area. Also to construct an upper level deck that is 24 feet by 11 feet, 264 square feet. The proposed decks will not create any new impervious lot area. The footings of the proposed deck will be approximately 1 foot from the septic system drain field. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 26%. The applicants have provided a stormwater plan from a licensed engineer for an infiltration basin that will capture approximately 2% of the impervious surface on the property. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Lake Marie, classified recreational development. Marie is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of a septic tank and drain field. The tank was installed and permitted in 2016. The drain field was permitted and installed in 2003. The entire system was certified in 2020. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 26%, as we said. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will still be 26%. Fairhaven Township, Clearwater River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and I have not received any other correspondence with regards to this request. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If the applicant could share with us any thoughts they have.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we were just looking to put a deck on the back and as a part of that, a deck over the patio, which is kind of offset, a little bit of a tripping hazard. But the deck footings where they are proposed were part of the original building plan with the septic system where it is. And so it would be completing much of what was actually designed when the house was built. And I think we're going to leave the property better off by implementing stormwater management and actually reducing the amount of water going down to the lake as part of the overall project. And to be honest, we'll be looking at putting some rain gardens on the corner of the lot and towards the lake anyways, just because lake quality matters a lot to us. So.
Okay, thank you. Board members that have questions for staff or the applicant.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I'd have a question for the applicant. Is the screened-in area going to have a roof on it, or is it going to be just all screened?
So there'd be a water collection with a gutter system that would capture. Right now, the roof is currently guttered over it, and so it should be less. But yeah, the proposal with the current design would have like a water collection system and a gutter that would bring the water down.
Okay. Additional questions?
Madam Chair, Dave
Go ahead,
Gamrad.
Dave.
I'd have a question for staff. How did this structure get over 25% lot coverage?
Madam Chair, members of the board, patios do not require a permit, and so technically, as long as they're not building a structure, they could technically fill their entire property with concrete, and it wouldn't be caught until they apply for a permit to do something. if that makes sense, Dave. So you can add sidewalks, you can add, and our ordinance is changing so that will kind of go away. But prior to this, you could add any sort of concrete driveways, that kind of stuff without a permit. And so technically there was nothing that was stopping people from putting patios in and sidewalks. Where it gets caught is when they want to apply for a permit to, add on to their structure or add a new structure. That's when we then find out that impervious is over 25%. And then they have to either come to us and ask for a variance, or they would have to remove some of their impervious to get them back down to the 25% in order to permit it.
So it's basically, if I understand it right, then it's a loophole that if somebody built and they didn't count driveways and stuff in the plan, then they could be over 25%.
I mean, there's not necessarily a loophole because we're looking for that when, for a driveway, for example, if we're seeing an attached garage, we're going to say that there is a driveway that is, on there. Now, are they adding more driveway than they say they did? That certainly could happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I have a question for staff. When they're looking at rainwater mitigation are they looking at just trying to control the percent that is over the 25%, like the 1%? Or are they looking at trying to make a system that controls all of the rainwater?
Well, in this scenario, Madam Chair, members of the board, they wanted to get to at least below 25% because they are allowed to be 25%. And so their intention here was just to capture enough to get them under that 25% number.
Okay, and the reason I ask is when I looked at the plan, and I believe this is the one with the two rain barrels that guttered.
No, that's a different one.
That's a different one. All right,
that one's coming yet tonight.
All right. That just came in an email to me this afternoon, so I wanted to check if. All right, thank you,
Madam Chair. If you look at the screen right now, that is the stormwater plan that they're proposing. That darkened kind of circular area next to the home is where their infiltration basin is going to be, and they're going to be routing some of their stormwater from the home towards that basin.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other questions?
I have a question for staff, Dave Gamrod. Why, if they're in the position of routing some of this water, why wouldn't they route more than 2% of it? If they're going to treat water, then they would want to treat, 70%, 80% of it so that it doesn't flow into the lake instead of just 2%.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my guess is that's the easiest way to do is that they can get that water there. Anything that's draining on the lake side of the home will be hard to get that water to that location where that infiltration basin is located. So they can catch all the water probably from, I would say, the north and west portion of the home and gutter it to that basin area. Anything that is on the south side of the home or on the east side would be almost impossible to get that there with the elevations that they have.
Okay, thank you. What year was the home built?
The home, let me go here and I'll take a look here. Okay.
2003, I believe.
Correct. 2003 is what we have.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, other questions? Okay, hearing none, are we ready for a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Dennis.
We have a motion to close. Do we have a second?
So move.
Okay, we have a second by Mike. Is there anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? All right, the public hearing is now closed. We'll move on to the findings of fact. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong. Yes, I believe that building a deck in an R1 zoning district is allowed.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Anyone disagree with the yes? I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong. I believe that the ordinances are there in order to make the sewage treatment system to be accessible and maintainable. What the applicant is trying to do is just to put a deck with a railing on top of an already existing patio. The patio's in that location already. The only difference here from the current state as is putting the footings for the deck next to the patio blocks. So it's really not encroaching upon the sewage treatment area any more than previously they were right next to each other before. And so I believe that, yes, it is in harmony with the general purpose of the control because we are not truly encroaching upon that area much more than we were before.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Does anyone disagree? We'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, Lakeshore Living Policy number 5 is to encourage implementation of innovative stormwater management practices in shoreland projects. I think the engineered plan by Brian Schultz is one, and the applicant also mentioned, and hopefully will follow through with, rain gardens as a second mitigation effort.
All right, we have a yes to number 3. Does anyone disagree? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I believe it is reasonable to want to have a finished deck on the back of your house, especially when it's at the elevation that it's currently at.
All right, we have a yes to number 4. Does anyone disagree with that? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, again, the landowner purchased a house like this. The current condition, the previous owners did not put the deck on. So I believe it is unique to the property.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Anyone disagree with that?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I'm wondering if the deviation from the 25% bothers me because everyone is supposed to adhere to that 25% figure, and how something can get above the 25% in the shoreland impact zone kind of bothers me. Unless we're having a lot of that after we make a variance, then people put as much concrete and impervious coverage of the lot into it that creates more strain on the water systems. I mean, it bothers me that this project is over 26.5%. And with that, I would say that it's not the way it should be. You know, in some way there should be some mitigation to get probably the thing closer to the 25% rule that everybody's supposed to follow.
So then are you responding no to number 5 then, or?
I would say yes. No to number 5.
All right, we have 1 yes and 1 no on number 5. We'll do roll call. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So we have 1 no, 4 yeses. We'll mark that answer as a yes. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, it does not change the character of the locality. Decks are very common.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree with yes for number 6? Mark that as unanimous yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Madam Chair, economics weren't discussed on this application.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Anyone disagree with yes? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous. We are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I'll make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to construct a deck less than 20 feet from a subsurface sewage treatment system and the soil treatment area on a lot that exceeds 25% impervious lot coverage, with the condition that the proposed engineered stormwater plan by Brian Schultz, which was part of our packet, is implemented as part of this variance.
All right, we have a motion with conditions. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, Mike
I
Kane.
second.
Okay, Jill, we'll put you down for a second. And then I'll do roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
No.
And I am a yes. So we have 4 yeses, 1 no. Motion carries. All right, so
Thank
if
you.
you have any questions about your application, you can check with Environmental Services staff via phone during regular business hours. And thank you for being with us this evening. All right,
Thanks
our
for your
next.
time. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Our next application, number 5, is to consider a request from Catherine and William Orr Jr. of Plymouth, Minnesota, from sections 10.2.11A2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a new residential dwelling ahead of the established building line. The said ordinance requires a new residential dwelling to be constructed at or behind the established building line. The affected property is 0.14 acres of part of the Government Lot 3, Section 3, Track 122 North, Range 29 West of Main Prairie Township. And the property address is 9837 Eclipse Road, Kimball, Minnesota. And are the Orrs with us this evening? Are the applicants with us this evening? Staff, do we know if the Orrs are with us?
Bonnie, I had a call-in user who must have just hung up because they probably couldn't speak or didn't know if they could speak. I'm assuming that was the Orrs. I'll let you know as soon as they get back on.
All right, do we want to go ahead to number 6?
Those applicants are available.
Okay, then, and we will not repeat all of the description for number 5 when we come back to it. So number 6, to consider a request from Troy and Kelly Betcher, is that correct? Andover, Minnesota, from section 6.2.1A of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a residential accessory structure with a larger maximum accessory building area than allowed for a property with a lot area of 2 acres. The said ordinance allows for a maximum accessory building area of 1,800 square feet for a property with a lot area of 2 to 4.49 acres. The affected property is Lot 6, Block 3 of Cedar Island Park, Section 31, Track 123 North, Range 30 West of Wakefield Township. The property address is 18555 of Cedar Lane, Richmond, Minnesota. And are the applicants with us?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. And we'll be back to you in just a moment. If the, we'll do a roll call on those that were able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I also visited the site. All right, if staff could give us an overview of the application.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants are proposing to construct a 72-foot by 36-foot, 2,592 square foot residential accessory structure with a 12-foot 6-inch sidewall height and a 19-foot 7-inch overall building height. The applicants are currently own Lot 6, Block 3 of Cedar Island Park. Cedar Island Park was platted in 1983. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2020. The total lot area for the property is 2 acres according to the survey provided by the property owners. There is an existing 1,740 square foot residential dwelling with a 444 square foot deck that was permitted and constructed between 1984 and 2006. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of a septic tank that was permitted and installed in 2020 and a drain field that was permitted and installed in 1986. The drain field was certified compliant in 2020. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Cedar Island Lake, classified recreational development. Cedar Island is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients and mercury in fish. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of the septic tank and drain field. The system is certified compliant in 2020. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is approximately 7%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be approximately 10%. An alternative to this request is to construct a residential accessory structure that will not exceed the cumulative maximum accessory building area total of 1,800 square feet with a maximum sidewall height of 14 feet and a maximum overall building height of 22 feet. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Watershed District, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and we have not received any other written correspondence with regards to this request. Thank you.
If we could hear from the applicant at this time.
Yes, this is William.
Okay, whatever comments you might have, go ahead.
Yes, this is, we're looking to make this cabin larger for the family. It's pretty small.
Madam Chair, this is
applicant.
The wrong applicant right now.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We are looking for applicant for the Troy or Kelly at this time. Your item will be next as we moved on, as we didn't have you online right away for William.
Oh.
So we will be back to you in just a few minutes, William.
Sure, that's good.
All right. So are Troy or Kelly with us?
Yes, we are both here.
Okay, go ahead with your comments on your request.
We are looking to a larger building to both store our vehicles and lawn and miscellaneous, and have one half of this building be a shop for my husband to be able to keep building street rods and muscle cars. In the future, we plan on retiring in the actual near future, and moving up there. So we attached pictures of some of our vehicles that insurance makes sure that we have them stored properly over the winter, or in a locked, safe area. And Troy also has a couple of other projects that he plans on doing. So we're just looking to be able to put it all in a building, keep things nice and tidy. When we purchased the lot, our realtor said, you have 2 acres, you can build whatever you want. And that was our fault for not checking on that. But when things go so fast on the market, you just jump on it. We were looking for a Rambler walkout, and that's what that happened to be. And that's where we sit. That's why we're here tonight with you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions from, I didn't do roll call yet. As far as who was able to visit. Oh, no, just a minute, I did do roll call. All right, so we all were able to visit the site. If board members have any questions for the applicant or for staff.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question for the applicants. The building is larger than what's allowed by ordinance. Is there another option of building an 1,800 square foot building using the maximum sidewall height and maximum building height and putting lifts in, to store the cars so that you would have enough room?
Really not many options for what we're looking at. I guess we have for sure that we need room, not that it's all about the room, but we have 8 cars that we need to have inside. And like she was saying, I would like to have half of it be a shop so I can still work on cars when I retire and still be able to enjoy the lake. We've had a cabin up there since 2001. My parents have bought a lot up there in 1973 on Horseshoe that we just love the area, and we're just hoping to make that a retirement place.
Okay, thank you.
All right, additional questions? Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing and move on to findings? We'd have a motion.
I so move, Dennis.
Jill DeLong, I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed to closing the public hearing from the board? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed, and we will move on to the findings. The variance request is to construct a residential accessory structure with a larger maximum accessory building area than allowed for a property within the lot area of 2 acres. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, accessory structures are allowed in the zoning.
All right, so we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 1? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. The variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances.
Madam Chair. Go ahead, Jill.
Go ahead, Jill.
Jill DeLong, I'm going to say that No, it does not fit with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Because it is a shoreland overlay district, we want to minimize the amount of square footage of impervious area, including things such as sheds or accessory buildings. And what they're requesting to build, according to the shoreland overlay district requirements, would require 9.5 acres or greater in order to make something 2592 square feet. What they are allowed for their less than 4.5 acres is 1,800 square feet. So I'm going to say no.
Okay, we have a no for number 2. Does anyone disagree with no for number 2? All right, hearing none, I will mark number 2 as a unanimous no. All right, number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan under Lakeshore Living Policies. Number 3, to discourage the alteration of natural shorelands and the creation of impervious surface in near shore areas.
Okay, we have a no for number 3. Does anyone disagree with no for 3? Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Madam Chair, I do believe it's reasonable for a retired person to have some hobbies and use an outbuilding for that use.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. I'm going to be a no for number 4 for the reason that, the guidelines for 2 acres to 4.5 acres is 1,800 square feet, and they're 2 acres, so they're at the very bottom of the number line for just making the permitted 1,800 square feet. And I think when the plan for variances was written, I think it was for unique situations or for situations where maybe we're slightly over, where this is significantly over what is requested. So I am going to be a no for number 4. So we'll do a roll call on number 4. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
No.
Dave?
No.
All right, so we have 2 yeses and 3 noes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it is created by the landowner. It sounds like, unfortunately, they purchased property that does not fit all of their needs, although it does fit some of them. So I believe it is the landowner.
All right, so you would say no on number 5. All right, we have 1 no for number 5. Does anyone disagree with no for 5? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous no. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, I don't believe the locality will change that dramatically. There are other pole sheds in the area, just not as large as this.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree with yes for 6? Hearing none, I'll mark that as a unanimous yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I don't believe that economics were discussed, so yes.
So you'd be a yes. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 7? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. and then we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we deny the applicant's request for a variance to construct a residential accessory structure with a larger maximum accessory building area than what is allowed for the property of their, the lot area that they have of 2 acres.
All right, we have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Jill DeLong, I second.
All right, and I will do roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I'm also yes. Your request has been denied. If you want more information on where you go from here, you can talk with environmental services staff by phone during regular business hours. And thank you for being with us this evening.
Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right, we will now go to, are the Orrs with us?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. We already read the basic introduction to your application, and so now we will go to checking who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I also visited the site. All right, if the staff could give us an overview of this application.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own a meets and bounds tract that is approximately 9,005 square feet or 0.21 acres in lot area based on the certificate of survey that was submitted with their application. The applicants purchased the property in 2016, and it is a legal non-conforming lot of record created in 1953. The property is in an R1 zoning district. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling consists of a 1,500 gallon holding tank that was permitted and installed in 1982. The system was certified compliant in 2020. In July 2020, the applicants applied for and were granted a variance to construct a 14-foot by 28-foot, 392 square foot dwelling addition 93.8 feet from Pearl Lake. The applicants were also proposing to raise the wall height 1 foot on the existing dwelling to match their proposed new addition. They applied for and were granted a variance from Main Prairie Township for a construction to be done 35 feet from the road center line. When the applicant's contractor started the construction, it was determined the existing structure was not suitable for the addition to be added, and the entire structure would need to be reconstructed. The applicants are now proposing to construct a new 40-foot by 28-foot, 1,120 square foot residential dwelling with 96 square feet of deck/stairs on the lake side of the dwelling. The dwelling and stairs will be located 90.8 feet from the ordinary high water level of Pearl Lake and ahead of the established building line. The proposed new dwelling will affect the building line for the adjacent properties as well. The proposed dwelling will have 3 bedrooms. The existing holding tank is currently sized to accommodate a 3-bedroom dwelling. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Pearl Lake. Pearl Lake is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients and mercury in fish. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system consists of a 1,500 gallon holding tank that was certified compliant in March 2020. The current impervious lot coverage is calculated at 12%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be 15%. An alternative to the request would be to build the new dwelling and the deck and stairs at or behind the established building line. Main Prairie Township, Pearl Lake Association, Sauk River Watershed District, and the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And I have not received any digital or written correspondence with regards to this request. Thank you.
Thank you, staff members. If the applicant then could share with us their thoughts.
Yes, we were just looking to make the cabin bigger for our family, so we can all spend the night.
Okay. Thank you. All right, questions from board members?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong. For staff on the current screen you're on, can you zoom in to the area where it's got the proposed building addition? The question that I have is there's this weird polygon that's over that proposed building addition that's kind of shaped like a wedge. What does that describe?
That could possibly be part of a building line, I guess. Angie, do you see anything that states what that might actually be?
Jamie, it's the setbacks. So it's a 63-foot setback and the 100-foot setback.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, I do see that now. Yep. So the first diagonal would be the first dashed line would be the 100-foot setback. And the next one would be the 63 feet setback would be my guess.
Thank you. So then also looking at this drawing, it looks like there used to be a deck there. I know I was there in July, but I don't remember what it looked like. So is this addition to where the original footprint was? Is that going part of where the deck used to be?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Jill, were you asking staff or were you asking the property owner?
Whoever knows the answer. If it's the property owner, they can answer too.
I believe there was deck that when you can kind of see the outline of the deck where that deck was. That was also the addition that was granted by your previous variance. So there's the she's annotating the existing deck right now. But that was also where your addition that you granted the variance for last time was, that was the addition that was granted last time. Now if what they're requesting is basically that entire structure there to be rebuilt rather than just adding the addition on. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just a comment about homes around Pearl Lake. Very few of the homes around Pearl Lake, at least on the north and the west side, have, if we're built today, would need a variance from the road and from the ordinary high water level. So they're probably in the same situation that the vast majority of the homes on this lake are in, because the road is so close to the water.
I agree. And then also looking at the screen that's up there right now. So the sight line between the two houses directly next to it is here. But then if you go one more house to what maybe is the east, then the sight line goes lower. So it doesn't look like there's really a straight sight line on this shore.
And one thing I noticed, I took a ruler and kind of just measured out from, if you like you said, if you left out that house that's next door, if you measure almost all of those houses from where they are from the shore, where they are requesting is right in line with how far everybody else is from the shoreline.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, a question for the applicant. You already have a variance, I believe it is, from Main Prairie Township to be 35 feet from the center line. There are other houses along that road that are closer than 35 feet. Did you seek at all a variance to be closer to the road so that you could come in compliance with the building line?
We didn't think we would be able to do that because I think the building has to be 10 feet from the holding tank, and I think that would be encroaching on the holding tank.
Do we have the location of the holding tank on any of these maps? If the applicant could describe where the holding tank is compared to where the house location
It
is.
looks like on this screen here, there's two little, above shed to be removed, there's two little crosshairs, and those are both septic manhole cleanouts. I don't know if that helps answer the question.
It also says on another drawing, existing septic back there.
Okay. That looks like more than 10 feet.
Amy, you can clue me in if you know where that is in the packet. I can sure pull that up. I'm not finding where that is. That Mike that you referenced.
It's on the next page.
There,
Yep.
up on
So
top
on the-
where it says Eclipse Road. Zoom in on there, and right above that E, it says septic. Right down here.
Right here.
Yeah, so it appears that there's more room there than 10 feet. But a second question for staff. If the applicants just replace the structure as it is, they would not need a variance. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, members of the board, they would have the ability to replace what was currently existing without expansion. Now, that structure obviously is smaller than what they have right now. So they do have the ability to replace what was currently there, correct, without expansion.
Member Gregory, I believe that the variance that we approved last summer in July was so that they could expand. So if they just rebuilt where it was, then they still wouldn't have the expansion they were looking for.
Yeah, I think my concern here is one thing is kind of begets another. So we started out allowing a deck to be added because our logic was that other people have decks, and so we should allow those in this case. And now, because of the condition of the structure, a deck has become a building addition. And so to me, the fact that we granted a variance for a deck is not relevant to this particular request to now add on to the building. And so, a lot of my questions are, can't we move closer to the road? Can't we make it a wider versus a longer, a building so that we don't encroach on those building lines, those sight lines from the neighboring houses? And so I appreciate, that we did approve a variance before, but I do think they are two different requests.
Okay, additional questions or comments from board members? Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing? Do we have a motion?
So moved, Dennis.
Second, Jill DeLong.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed to closing the public hearing?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod, I'd have one more question for.
Go ahead, Dave.
It would be possible to make this building 2 foot wider or something, or some width longer, and then not encroach on that thing. Would they need a variance at that point? If they would just widen the building slightly and shorten it up slightly?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I just had a chance to scale out on their survey what the distance is from the the proposed home to those circles for the septic, and they have about 12 feet there right now. So technically, they could move 2 feet that way. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the only option. They could obviously move the tank closer to that property line to gain more distance there. There certainly are other options. I think, like Mr. Gamrat said, they could possibly shorten up the length of the structure and make it wider because they have some more width that they could work with that way. I'm not saying how you guys should rule on this, but there certainly appears to be some other options.
Okay, any other questions before we go ahead with our motion to close the public hearing? Because we have a motion and a second on the table.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod.
Yes, Steve.
Would it be in the best interest of the applicants if they would want to do some more planning and table this thing and see if they can get closer to not needing any variance or coming up with a better plan?
Well, I believe that it would be up to the applicant whether they want us to go ahead and vote or whether they want to revise their plan. Mr. Orr, is that something that you'd want to consider, or would you like us to go ahead and vote?
Madam Chair, this is Catherine Orr, and I'm just kind of confused because we had the variance in place before, and we're just building exactly what was approved before, except we're going up a little, and I don't understand what the question is at this time. I guess if you could clarify that for me, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, could you let me know the square footage of the house? Is that larger than the previous square footage of the house? The planned new construction, is that larger than the previous existing structure?
It's larger than the previous existing structure, but it's the same identical footprint that was approved before, plus now there's minus that bathroom that was jotted out. That's going to be gone. So it's actually a little bit smaller footprint-wise.
Are there other board members that would like to comment on his question about our discussion?
It would be helpful if staff could provide a reminder of exactly the variance request from July. My understanding had been that it was for a deck addition. Is it, as the applicants are indicating, the exact same addition, that they're now proposing?
Madam Chair, members of the board, There was an existing deck there. That was not what the variance request was for. The variance request was for an addition to the home to be placed where that deck was, and that variance was granted. So, Angie, if you could go back to the survey, and if you could zoom in. So what you're seeing as house and what you're seeing as proposed building addition was the variance that was granted previously, the proposed building addition. Does that answer your question, Dennis?
And then, so in the variance that we approved in July, was there a deck included in that?
There was no deck included in that variance request. It was just that proposed building addition in the location of that existing deck at that time.
Right. So the difference between the two requests is about 100 feet of deck, is it not?
Correct.
No. There's no deck.
There are steps that are on the lakeside that you guys are proposing, and they are larger than 32 square feet, which we allow. That does not have to meet the setback. Your steps are spanning the whole front of the whole lakeside of your home, and so that is considered a deck or stairs. You can call them what you want, but those are being added or part of your proposal.
So the stairs to walk out is that's not going to be allowed?
They are part of this variance request.
Yes.
To get down to the ground.
You are allowed a 32 square foot landing to come out of the house. That would not be part of this request. But because your landing or your stairs is more than 32 square feet, we have to make it part of your variance request.
Oh, well, that's no problem. We'll be underneath that 32 square feet.
Madam Chair, this is Angie Berg.
Go ahead, Angie.
So I was just hoping to maybe help on Dennis's question from a few moments ago. The reason this request is back to you is really because the property owners obtained a variance in July for a building addition to add on. Now they're basically asking to reconstruct the whole building. And so when we brought the building addition to you, we brought it to you with the idea, and the request was to add on. Now that they're not able to add on due to the structural issues, it's coming back to the Board of Adjustment. You need to think of it as a new structure. And so hopefully that answers Dennis's question and maybe answers the applicant's question on why are we struggling with this so much. It's because it went from an addition to now a whole new structure.
Yeah, and Angie, thank you for that. You've said it much better than I. Anytime we have a new construction, we have an opportunity to change, some of the past decisions that were made regarding properties. And I heard Madam Chair say that there's a lot of properties around the lake, but that's partly what we're trying to correct over time. And so that's why I'm asking a lot of questions about if you're building a new building, what can you all do with it versus just adding on or thinking of it as just a continuation, if you will, of the variance that we approved in July. And so thank you, Angie. That was much better said than I did.
All right, so we are at the point where for the applicant, would you like us to go ahead and vote on the application? Or would you like to make a revised plan that you would bring back? And just for your information, if we go ahead and vote and we approve it, then you are approved for the plan that you brought forward to us. If we vote and it is not approved, then you would need to go and make an alternate plan that would not need a variance or a lesser variance. So it's kind of up to you whether you want us to proceed and vote.
Yes, please go ahead and vote.
All right, we will go ahead and do that then. So then we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there anyone opposed to closing the public hearing at this time? So hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. We will go ahead and do findings of fact to construct a new residential dwelling ahead of the established building line. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which this subject property is located.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, it is R1 zone and new construction is allowed. I also have one comment for staff. I noticed on the meeting date it says March 9th. Is that important? It should be the 22nd.
Yeah, as long as it was public noticed correctly, I think we would be okay.
Mike, this is Angie Berg. Which date are you looking at, please?
On where it says agenda number 5, right under that it says meeting date March 9th instead of the 22nd.
On the front page of the application.
Yeah. Angie, I believe it's on my staff report. It says meeting date March 9th. It was still noticed as the correct date for the public notice, so we're fine to go through with it.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 1? Then we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I don't think it is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. There's the reason to have building lines, the reason to stay as far away from the water as possible is for the protection of the water and for the neighbors to have good sight lines. And I think anytime we have new construction, we have an opportunity to correct issues from the past. When we're doing, just remodeling or whatever, that's not always possible. So in this case, the applicants have an opportunity to make a change in the siting of the structure and the size of the structure and the position of the structure on this lot. So I do not think it's in harmony.
All right, we have one no for number 2.
Madam Chair?
Disagree.
Jill
Go ahead, Jill.
DeLong. Yeah, I believe it is in harmony. The only thing that we're having a variance for is just the established building line. Everything else for the setbacks for the water or anything else like that is not on the docket for this discussion. As far as I understand, it's just for the established building line. And as we can see from the overhead picture, where this one is, it will be in line with the house that's to the right of it, if you're standing on the road, and 2 houses down to the left of it. The only one that it's ahead of is the one very small building that's just directly left to it. So I believe that, to me, it is in harmony with general purposes and intent of the official controls, because if we look at more of the houses along this line, it is following the building line.
All right, we have one yes and one no. For number 2, we'll take a vote. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
I would vote yes, and with the comment that the part that is in front of the building line would be the deck and not actually the house. So.
All right, and I am also a yes for number 2. So number 2 is 4 yeses and 1 no. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it is consistent with the comprehensive plan under living goals for number 3, support housing options that give people in all life stages and of all economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes, specifically safe, as that is what's really bringing up this variance to us a second time, is we approved it in July, but it turned out that the house was not safe as it was currently built. So they're just trying to rebuild in a safe manner.
So we have a yes for number 3. Anyone disagree with yes for 3? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, same reasons. Again, I think the property owner has a chance here. And I think it's unfortunate, we have an entire lake here. And so while each one of these variance requests are unique, it'll be interesting to see how many more we get from around the lake after this. I think it would be reasonable for the property owner to take more care of the water. And despite the building line, the reason the building line is in play is that it's not 100 feet from the shore. And so I think the property owner had a chance to more reasonably use this property than they are currently doing.
All right, we have a no for number 4. Is there anyone that disagrees with no for number 4?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that using the property in a reasonable manner, they just want to have a home in an R1 district on the lake. I believe that is a reasonable manner.
All right, we have 1 no and 1 yes for number 4. We'll do roll call. Mike?
No.
Dave?
It's a hard one because I'm thinking that if it could have been not such a touchy issue, I would say yes.
And I also am a yes. Because when I'm looking at comparisons of where the building lines for not just the house next to them, but all the way down that road, they're very, very compatible. So I'm going to say yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, I believe the issue started when the variance request was approved for the addition and they dug further into it and discovered the deterioration of the existing cabin that wasn't suitable for construction.
And I'd also add to that as far as where this house, this house and the rest of the houses along the lake were originally built, determined the building line, and they all maybe should have been further back originally. And we can't pick up and move everything at the same time, although it would be good to move some. But I believe at this time it would be unique to this, or would be the plight of the landowner at this time. So we have yeses or a yes. Does anyone disagree with yes?
Again, I need to be a broken record, I know, but it's no. The landowner is choosing where to put this particular house. And so it is not due to circumstances unique to the property. It is a property owner choice.
All right, so we have 1 no and 2 yeses so far. Jill?
Yes.
And Dave?
Would be no.
All right, we have 3 yeses and 2 noes for number 5. On number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it will maintain the essential character of the locality. They're replacing will actually improve it. They're replacing a starting to run down cabin with a more structurally sound cabin. It's not going to be huge. It's in about the same location as the old one, so it will maintain the essential character.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 6? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Well, I'll say yes because I don't believe economics were really the issue here. We have a yes for number 7. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 7? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Then we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, this is Angie Berg. Just jumping in here. If the variance is looking to be granted, we'd also ask you to consider any potential conditions.
All right, thank you. And let me look.
I don't see any conditions really listed.
Any recommended conditions? What conditions would staff recommend for us?
Well, Madam Chair, I realize you asked staff, but
go ahead.
And I won't be making the motion here because I'll be voting in the negative. But certainly, given the construction and I think a water mitigation plan would be a good thing. If we can't improve the site location, let's at least improve the water quality.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Jamie Lucas.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I apologize. I forgot to ask if you guys had a chance to see Soil and Water Conservation District's recommendations for this property. We got those from Mr. Berg today, and so we forwarded those in an email to each of you guys. So I don't know if you had all had a chance to see those or not, but there was. And I can explain what he was proposing. He was proposing a new buffer area, minimum of 25 feet on the kind of the west lake side, and then a new buffer area, minimum 25 feet on the east lake side, with the 25-foot middle area open for access is kind of what he was proposing. And they are actually on the screen right now.
Madam Chair, members or staff, has the applicant been given this information?
The applicants were also provided with this today by email. As I mentioned, we just got this today, so that was the very soonest we could get them out to them.
And Madam Chair, members, it was no fault of SWCD's. We didn't set a schedule yet for this year for them to do their review, so we didn't give them enough time to get it done. I'm actually working on that as we speak as a review schedule for the rest of the month. So you get them ahead of time and the applicants get them ahead of time. So when Dennis asked the question, did you see SWCD's comments and are you comfortable or are you willing to do them? Then they'll have an opportunity to have seen them already.
Okay, could we hear from the applicant as far as their, since they just received them today, any questions or thoughts they have on those mitigation options that were placed before them?
I have not seen those. I have no idea what you're referring to. So unless my husband has seen them, I am not aware of any of this.
All right, Jamie, do you think with the picture that's up for us right now on the screen, are you able to see the picture that's on the screen?
Not on the phone, I'm not, no.
Oh, you're just
No,
on the
we're,
phone, you're not on a computer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're voice only.
Okay. Jamie, could you just verbally give them an explanation of what is being recommended by Soil and Water?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the board, and Mr. and Mrs. Orr. Do you guys have a copy of the map with the proposed structure and the aerial photo that was part of our application that we sent in your packet?
Do you know that?
That's the colored photo. It shows a pink area where your proposed cabin is going to be going with a green building line on there.
Yeah, we're gonna check it out right now.
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, just because there's existing sand location by the lake, I don't feel comfortable making that as a condition of the variance, just because it's at such a short time period and deciding to take out existing sand to put in a buffer area, that's kind of a big decision.
Is that it? I don't know.
Oh, that's fine.
That's not it? I don't know what other papers there are. I apologize. We are looking.
Okay. Also, I was going to ask staff if this would be an option. We have another meeting this coming Thursday in 3 days. Would we be able to table this in order for the applicants to have time to be explained to them?
Angie, would we be able to do something like that since it wasn't public noticed for that day?
Madam Chair, Jamie, yes, you can do that. I think we did that this fall a couple of times with requests. So you just continue it until your meeting on Thursday, and then we would take it first on the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd make that motion.
Well, and I'll accept that motion. I'd like to hear the applicant's thoughts on that.
So,
we have another meeting this Thursday, and in order to give you an opportunity to understand what we're proposing before we would vote and make a decision on it, we could table your request until Thursday. We would put you at the top of the agenda on Thursday, and then just come back, get your comments, and then make our vote.
Okay, so what?
Or you can ask us to go ahead and vote right now. Your decision.
Well, I guess I'm confused at this, what we're supposed to be looking at and how it would affect how you're voting.
Madam Chair, I believe we already voted. We completed voting. We're ready to make a motion.
Well, we did findings, but we have not, we've accepted we haven't gotten a motion to approve or deny yet. We've done findings. Or would you rather us go ahead and complete making a motion and voting on it with the conditions, and then depending on what the vote is, you can talk with staff as far as what those conditions mean? You know, I'll kind of let you know from what I'm hearing from the board is I'm thinking adding the conditions may be a influencing factor for some board members.
As far as the buffer zone, is that like adding
vegetation?
Vegetation, like grass or tall grass or?
Jamie, could you maybe elaborate what a vegetative pad would look like there?
Sure. Generally, Mr. Orr, the vegetative buffer would be like a natural or a natural grasses or sedges or stuff like that. It wouldn't necessarily be just like bluegrass, you know, like a yard grass. It would be typically other types of, generally they are a little bit longer than your typical bluegrass, and it's going to be an area that you're not going to mow down.
Okay, so the non-mowable.
Correct. Correct. Yep.
Yeah. We have no problem doing something like that.
All right, and that would be along the shore on both sides. You'd be allowed to keep a 25-foot span somewhere in there that you'd have access to the water, that there the sand could remain. Am I correct on that 25 feet?
Yeah, it would be up to you guys to condition it how you decided.
All right.
If you wanted to go with exactly what, you know, SWCD proposed, you could certainly do that. If you wanted to do less, you could do less. If you wanted to do more, you could do more.
All right. So this is just the recommendation from them. All right. Would you like us to go ahead and have a vote?
Yes, please.
All right. Yeah. So we are ready then to accept a motion.
Madam Chair. First, I would withdraw my previous motion because that's on the table right now. So I would withdraw the continuation motion, and then I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for a variance to construct a new residential dwelling ahead of the established building line with the condition that they implement the Stearns SWCD mitigation plan.
All right, and I just have one question for staff. In that plan, was there anything other than buffers? Was there any like rain gardens or anything else in that plan?
Madam Chair, members of the board, there was not any rain gardens or anything like that.
I just want to make sure that the
shoreland
applicants,
buffers.
Okay, I want to make sure the applicants don't get any surprises.
Madam
we
Chair,
didn't talk
Jamie,
about.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Jamie, actually,
go ahead.
Was it on the screen was an additional recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to be very clear and comfortable that the applicants are understanding what they're agreeing to, because otherwise we're going to be back with this request. And it's not their fault because they're on the phone. It's just the way we're meeting right now. So, but as per on the screen, there's a proposal that the lawn is tipped from the lake towards the home.
So that there'd be where it says maintain at least a foot higher elevation of the lawn than the rest, or the edge of the lawn to the rest of the property. Is that what you're talking about?
I believe so, Madam Chair. Jamie, I didn't have a chance to read these. I was out once I got them today, so I'm not sure if there's better explanation to the applicants. But again, I would encourage the Board of Adjustment to consider continuing this so that the property owners clearly understand what they're agreeing to tonight. Otherwise, I feel like we're going to be back to you with an amendment.
Mm-hmm. Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we approve the variance with no conditions.
Madam Chair, a point of order. There's a motion on the table already.
There's already a motion on the board, and we'd have to act on that motion before we could act on a second motion. So, Dennis, you have the motion on the floor right now. Could you please repeat your motion for everyone?
Well, Madam Chair, I would, with your direction, gladly withdraw that motion if we plan to continue this to Thursday's meeting. I would be glad to put that motion back on the table.
Madam Chair, how would it work if we moved it to Thursday's meeting and we have different members of the board attending that meeting?
Madam Chair,
I guess
Berg, my recommendation would be they abstain because they wouldn't be privy to the conversations tonight nor part of the findings of fact.
Madam Chair, is it
Yes,
possible
go
the
ahead.
applicants can open up a computer and pull up this information?
Well, it sounds like they're talking to us just by a telephone.
Right, but I mean, if they got the information via email, they could open up their email and look at it. And if there's questions, we could address it. Otherwise, I would be in favor of delaying this until Thursday night.
All right, applicants, would you be acceptable to moving your request, finalizing your request this next Thursday?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
All right, then we do have a motion on the floor. I believe Dennis changed his motion, I believe, to continue till Thursday, if I'm correct.
I had not formally done that,
Okay.
Madam Chair, but I'm glad to do so. I'll withdraw my previous motion and then make a motion that we continue this request to Thursday evening.
Madam Chair, Mike, I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll do a roll call. Dennis made the motion. Mike seconded, I believe. Jill?
No.
Dave?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So we will put you on the beginning of the agenda on the meeting on Thursday evening. That will give you a chance to review the email that was sent to you. And if you have questions about that, please call Environmental Services staff during regular business hours if you have questions about what those proposed requirements would be. Now, please understand that we have not made a motion yet. The suggestions from Soil and Water are a recommendation, and the board could choose to make conditions that are more restrictive or less restrictive than what Soil and Water has recommended. But until we actually accept a motion, we can't tell you what that would be. But it's most likely going to be very similar to what Soil and Water is recommended.
Okay, Madam Chair, I do have a question. Going on the docket for Thursday evening, are we going to go through all of this all over again, or are we
No.
just address?
No. We would just announce what the item is that we're going to be talking about, that it was tabled. Because tabling means we're just continuing it. We don't have to redo anything. And as someone mentioned before, we would recommend that if there are members that are present on Thursday that are not here today, we would recommend that they abstain because they have not heard the discussion.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, we appreciate your patience with us since you just received that information today. I would hate for us to make a decision on something you're not really understanding.
We'll make sure that we have it under our belt for Thursday.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
So the OR application is now tabled until the Thursday meeting. Okay, we will move on to our last agenda item for this evening, and that is to consider a request from Craig and Colleen Blonigan, Avon, Minnesota, from sections 10.2.11A1A of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a residential accessory structure less than 100 feet from the OHWL of lake classified as recreational development. The said ordinance requires a structural setback of 100 feet from the OHWL of a lake classified as recreational development. The affected property is lots 8 and 9, Block 1 of Lazy Lagoon, Section 7, Track 125 North, Range 30 West of Avon Township. And the property address is 18733 of 368th Street, Avon, Minnesota. And are the applicants with us?
I am.
Okay, thank you. We'll be back to you in just a minute. All right, first let's do roll call on who was able to visit the site. Dennis?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I also was able to visit the site. All right, if staff could please give us an overview.
Sure, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, the applicants currently own lots 8 and 9, Block 1 of Lazy Lagoon, and cannot be sold separate due to their size. Lazy Lagoon was platted in 1965. The tracts contain a total lot area of approximately 22,520 square feet on Pelican Lake. The property is an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2003. There is an existing 1,766 square foot residential dwelling with attached garage that is located on lot 9. On lot 8, there is an existing 140 square foot tool shed that is permitted and was placed on the property in 1990 according to the Stearns County Assessor's records. There is also an existing illegal non-conforming RV trailer that was placed on the lot between 2005 and 2015. In contacts with the property owner, the RV was going to be removed as soon as they possibly could. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the existing dwelling consists of two 1,500-gallon holding tanks that were permitted and installed in 2019. The applicants are proposing to construct a 32 by 28, 896 square foot residential accessory structure with a 9-foot sidewall height and a 14.75 foot building height. The proposed accessory structure will be located approximately 70 feet from the ordinary high water level of Pelican Lake. The applicants have applied for and were granted variances from Avon Township to locate the structure 45 feet to the center line of 188th Avenue and 40 feet from the center line of 368th Street. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Pelican Lake, classified recreational development. Pelican is on the list of impaired waters for mercury and fish. The existing holding tank system was permitted and installed in 2019. The system is considered compliant because of it is within the 5-year install date. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is approximately 11%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be approximately 18%. Avon Township, Pelican Lake Association of St. Anna, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. We do not have any correspondence outside of the applicant submitted kind of like a plan for the stormwater for this structure. He plans to put gutters that empty into a drum filled with rocks, attached a 6-foot long drain tile PVC pipe to each drum, allowing water to dissipate into the soil. And that was emailed to each of you guys when we received that today. Again, some of you may or may not have seen that. but he has planned for that. And those kind of mimic the SWCD recommendations that were done and emailed today as well. Outside of that, that is all we have.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant could share with us their comments.
Sure. So the structure is really meant to be inside storage for boats, an extra car. The current garage attached to the house is a single car garage. So we end up having a car parked outside all the time. And then we end up storing our boats outdoors. I'd prefer to have those stored over the winter indoors, along with lawn tractors, lawnmowers, etc., and a small area for a workshop, woodworking, as a hobby. The water mitigation, the two drums, one off of each gutter with the 6-foot PVC, I could make that longer, but I'm planning to have that run parallel to 368th and trying not to cross 368th if I don't have to. The current water situation when we get extremely heavy rains is it drains off nicely. The soil around here is almost exclusively sand with some large field rock if you get down 6-8 feet.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there questions from board members, either of staff or the applicant?
Madam Chair, Jill DeLong, question for the applicant. Are you related at all to Brenda Blonigan?
Which Brenda Blonigan? I'm related to two.
She's a blonde one. Okay, so then I'll just abstain from voting on this one because I know Brenda Blonigan.
Madam Chair, I would point out that it is not necessary for Member DeLong to abstain simply because she knows someone. It's only if she has a conflict of interest, but I'll leave that up to Member DeLong, but wanted to point that out. Question, Madam Chair, for applicant. Are you removing all of the structures on Lot 8? There's several different things on the lot. Do you plan to remove all of those?
So if you look at your overhead view, the hoop shed has been gone for 2.5 years or 3 years. So that's already been removed. So what's left there is there's an overhang or an awning that was there with a concrete pad that the previous owner had a trailer house on that lot. And so the overhung their front door, if you will. But yes, everything is going to be graded off, leveled off, and then start with a single structure. So the concrete that's there now, the overhang that's there now, the camper, the tool shed, everything would be gone.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, additional questions? Okay, if we don't hear any additional questions, we'd be ready for to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Okay, Mike, I heard a motion from Mike and a second from
Dennis.
Dennis, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none. Did I hear someone? Oh, hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. We will define as a fact to construct a residential accessory structure less than 100 feet from the OHWL of a lake classified as recreational development. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, it is R1 zone district. Accessory structures are allowed.
All right, we have a yes for number one. Does anyone disagree? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number two, The variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, given the applicant's interest and work with the Stearns County Water and Soil and has a good water mitigation plan, I do think that the water quality will be protected. And so I do think it is in harmony with the general purposes and intent.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Is there anyone that disagrees with yes for 2? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would point to number 3, which is the housing options, which will include accessory buildings to give people in all life stages and economic means viable choices, but also point out number 2 under living goals to manage the impacts of growth and development on the natural resources.
All right, so we have a yes for number 3. Does anyone disagree with yes for number 3? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Madam Chair. Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Mike. Dave, go ahead.
Okay, they have shown care in taking the Soil and Water's water plan and cleaning up the lot, and I think that that's a good deal.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Does anyone disagree with number 4? With yes for number 4? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to the circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I think, given the location of the water and given the size of the lots, it's not really possible to be in compliance with the 100-foot setback. So I do think it is unique to the property.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Anyone disagree with that? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, I don't believe the character will change by adding an accessory structure.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Anyone disagree? Mark that as unanimous yes. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Dave Gamrod, there was not a discussion of economics in this decision.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Anyone disagree? Mark that as unanimous yes, and we are open for a motion.
Madam Chair, Dennis Gregory, I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to construct a residential accessory structure less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level with 2 conditions. The first condition is that the applicant removes all other structures on the lot that are currently existing. And the second condition is that the applicant employs the water mitigation efforts as they have described. And I was trying to get to the and SWCD, they really don't call them 1, 2, 3, and 4 on their list. So the first one, which is they indicate that the gutter of the proposed building and route the water away from the lake. And then their number 3, which is adding the rock sumps at the outlets of each gutter. I would not include their number 1 and 2, which is would require the applicant to get a written agreement from a neighboring property.
All right. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Mike.
All right, Mike. And I would just like one clarification when you said remove other accessory structures. Do we need to clarify that so we're not talking about the accessory structure that is attached to the house?
I had indicated lot 8.
Oh, just on lot 8. All right, thank you. Okay, I missed that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Angie Berg. So
yes,
I would actually, it kind of gets complicated, but there's a lot of case law related to a taking statute. So we would advise the Board of Adjustment not to place a condition to require structures to be removed unless they are on the applicant's submittal. And secondly, I can assure you that we won't issue a permit. We won't issue the permit for the shed if there's any outstanding violations. So if there's any structures that are non-conforming, illegal non-conformities, we will ensure that those are taken care of prior to issuing the permit.
So we should remove that, the condition about removing accessory structures we should take off of our motion.
I would recommend.
Madam Chair, I'll amend my motion to remove the first condition.
So the only condition would be the Soil and Water's recommendations.
Correct.
And not all of those.
Right.
The two you stated. All right.
One comment, please.
Yes, go ahead.
So the removal, just for your edification, Ms. Berg, the non-conforming illegal camper has already been sold for scrap. So we're just waiting for them to haul it away.
Okay, and I think she recommended we take that off just to clean it up so it meets standards or meets what we should be doing closer.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion, and I believe we had a second from.
I will second the new revised motion.
All right, second. All right, so then Jill?
Abstain.
Okay, Dave?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So we have 4 yeses, 1 abstaining, and that is enough for a yes vote. So your motion carries, or your request carries. If you have more questions, you can check with Environmental Services staff via telephone during regular business hours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, does staff have anything additional for us? Any other questions, comments for this evening? I have one question about this last one. When he talked about the rain barrels and that all draining, when Soil and Water makes recommendations, what kind of a rainfall do they figure that's going to cover? Because, well, my husband helped me with this today because I had a question, and he calculated if you had a 1-inch rainfall on the size of the roof of the building that he's projecting, you'd need 10 of those barrels to hold a 1-inch rainfall. So how do they determine, how many barrels they have, and I don't know if maybe staff here can't answer that. Maybe I need to ask that to Greg, but.
Madam Chair,
Angie,
we would have to ask that of SWCD. I definitely know that it doesn't capture the 1-inch rainfall event. That Ken would be right about that. So we can certainly reach out and ask Greg that question and have him provide a response to you.
Okay, because he calculated it would take 10 of those rain barrels. So is it kind of like, is it asking people to do something that really isn't going to have much of an impact? I don't know.
I do wonder, I have no idea, but I do wonder whether the soil conditions make a difference. I know the soil conditions here, the percolation rate is tremendous, and unless it comes down 1 inch, in a minute, but if it's in over an hour or so, the percolation rate in the sand that we have here is quite amazing, and I think the soil conditions are similar there. But that was one thing we talked about in the past, is having SWCD, take the soil conditions into account.
And maybe they did, and maybe that's why 2 would be enough to cover the excess water.
Right.
Right. I don't think that the intent of those barrels were to necessarily capture all the water, because they're going to be putting a trench out the side with that the water is going to flow into, where they're going to have rocks in there to kind of just dissipate the water into the ground. And so that's not going to necessarily be all the storage. You're not going to store it all there. It's just a means to capture it to go out into that 6-foot length of trench that he's also proposing.
Okay. So it's part of a combined effort.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we have, you guys have in the past required rain barrels for people. Well, in a situation like that, yeah, if you get a big rainfall, you're going to probably get more rain than what that barrel could necessarily hold. And so generally they have a spigot on there that they try to leave open so that the water can just run out if you get more than what will be captured, because otherwise it's going to go back up into the gutters.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, any other questions, or are we ready for a motion to adjourn? Sounds like we're ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Dave Gemlin.
All right, and a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned. I have one question though. Of the members that were here this evening, is there any of them that do not at this point think they'll be able to be here on Thursday? Because that could affect this one that we tabled. Did everyone plan on being able to be here Thursday? Okay, I just want to make sure we had a quorum to actually take a vote if we ask the other 2 members to abstain. And Angie,